Hi, it's Lucy here, and today I've got a card here that I'm going to make similar. I had a bit of interest on how I made it on social media, so I thought I'd show, and I'm using these papers today from Uniquely Creative called Fresh Folk, and you can buy the collection, but these are just scraps that I had left over, and you can use any scraps to create this anyway. So I've cut them into 5 centimeter squares, and I'm just sorting out which sides that I want to use for them, depending on what's on them. Once I've done that, I'll be cutting them on the diagonal to make the triangles, which is nice and easy. So yeah, once they're cut, you get to choose which sides you want to use again in case some of them you want to change over. So I'm just cutting a piece of recycled paper here that I'm just making much larger than the rectangle die that I'll be cutting out, so that I've got space to play with. And I'm using some of my double-sided tape, and I'll be peeling that off, and then I just get started anywhere you like on the card front. I generally seem to be starting in the same position, somewhere in the middle. You don't want to put them all next to each other. That's why I've put this one here on an odd shape, because otherwise you'll end up with just looking like more squares rather than triangles. So yeah, making some of them on an angle still. Most of it all still works out doing that, just popping them anywhere. Just always make sure that you're popping them up against something else. So I've almost finished there. So I'll just put that through my die cutting machine now, and I'm going to start stitching. I use a jelly roll pen. This is a size 10 nib, so it's quite a thick one. I had a little bit of trouble today getting it to work, so most of it I was doing it, just going over it kind of twice. I will show you in the next card a bit of a slower one and more of a close-up. But yeah, normally these work really well. So I'm just putting that on the card front, and I'll add, I'm just playing around with a few things to add to give some more interest. And then the card is basically done. What I did notice was, the stitching didn't look, it didn't stand out quite as much, although it does in real life. It didn't stand out still as much as the other one, and I realised because on here I've inked it all on this side, and this one I haven't. So what I'll do now is I'll do another one so that you can see that, and I'll use some inks. So I'm just testing out of these two which one is the best to go with my card. So this is just another piece of scrap paper. I always have an abundance. And then I'm just going to check with this little bird, and I think the one on the right suits best. I'm so sorry I didn't write it down which one it is, but if you're not using these papers, it doesn't matter. You just go with, whichever ink that you find works best. So I'm just going to go around all of the items that I'm going to use for this next card. I have some leftover triangles, which I will start with. But I get halfway through the card and realise that I need more. So I won't be showing too much of this. You get the idea, just inking around the outside. I've used a piece of scrap paper here to save my fingers from getting all dirty. I hope you've been enjoying my videos. I'm fairly new to YouTube and learning every day a few more tricks on video making. So I'd love it if you subscribed. I show you here, this is the inked ones versus the non-inked. So you can see there's quite a difference, and I probably over-inked, to be honest. If I was to do it again, I wouldn't ink quite so heavily. But still, this gives just another look, and it still turns out nice in the end. So here again, I've put one, not even to the other parts, so that then I can play around with all the triangles. Bound to make a few mistakes occasionally, so I was able to get that one back off. So here I've run out of triangles, so luckily I just cut a couple more, and then we could finish off the card that way. It's kind of like putting a little puzzle together, isn't it? And here it didn't quite work, but I cut that off, and at the end you don't notice it anyway. So I've just put that one through my die cutting again as well. And I've got some perfect pearls here that I've had forever. So I put some of that in my water bottle and shake it up and give it a spray. And now it's got a really nice shimmer to it. That's a really good idea if you want just a light shimmer. You won't be able to see it on the photos even at the end, but you can see it in real life. So it's just a nice added extra. Not too much water so that the paper doesn't warp and take too long to dry, especially if you're going to be doing the faux stitching on the pieces. So I'm just playing around here with different embellishments to put on. This I'm doing the stitching again, and you'll see a close-up of it shortly. It doesn't have to be perfect. You really can't tell at the end of it that it's not, because there's so much of it. It just looks like, it's all done fine, whereas, it's not all perfect. So here's a close-up of how I do it. I just roughly, and sometimes I'm sort of doing it twice in that time, going over it, so that it gives it a nice thick line. So it's finished. I've finished with the stitching and just adding the embellishments, and then the card will be done. I'd love to hear which card is your favourite at the end, if you had a minute. And if you felt like subscribing, that would be wonderful. I do have a couple more videos almost ready. And there's something different again as well. These ideas that, I do aren't always original ideas, but they may be just a new idea to some of you, or something that you've forgotten to try as well. So, and if you're like me, I just love watching YouTube videos of crafting, and I just get a real thrill out of just watching other people crafting as well as myself. So they're the jelly roll pens that I use, and this one is a size 8, and I'm just like putting it on some paper to try and get it to work if it seems a little dry, because I haven't used it in a while. So I'm just adding a few little highlights on these just to make them stand out a little bit more. And adding some Nouveau drops, and I'll add a pearl as well after the thank you, and then this thank you card is finished. So here is all 3 of the cards. I hope you've enjoyed watching, and yeah, I'd love to know if you do try this style yourself. Here's the close-ups of each one. And yes, please subscribe if you'd like to see any more of my videos. Thanks for watching.